And what is up? Welcome in. Wes Mitchell here, Chris Clark, GC Live. Another Monday edition of the show. Gamecocks are on a roll. 4 straight wins. South Carolina defeating Texas A&M on Saturday night, Williams-Brice Stadium, 30-24. We're going to dive right into it. We'll tell you a little bit about Clint a little bit later on. Shout out to everybody already hopping in the chat. We're a little bit low on the numbers compared to what I expected, but I feel like it's going to gather, it's going to game as the show goes on. Or maybe they're just used to me starting at 2:03 instead of right at 2 o'clock. But Chris, man, we got a lot to get to on this one because there's so many different ways we can take it. So we'll start general, then we'll dive in as we go. Your big picture, just initial gut feel thoughts coming off of South Carolina's massive win over Texas A&M.
I'm going to go really big picture, man. Just looking at this game, obviously it's kind of the elephant in the room was the fact that South Carolina had, of course, lost 8 straight games to A&M, and the games lately have not been competitive, including in Shane Beamer's first season. So you're able to get your first win against A&M, which is significant. You're able to break that streak. You're able to break through with, performing much better than you have. I think that's what a lot of Gamecock fans are looking for in this season. Hey, even in your losses, which you expect to take this year, you want to see more competitiveness. And I think that's why people were so disappointed with the Georgia game, for instance, earlier this year. South Carolina is competitive. They win. They break that streak. Then you look at the fact, Wes, this is still a big picture thought to me, you do it right after beating Kentucky. So you look last season, you didn't really stack a lot of really good moments in that year. You would have some highs and some lows. Like you just said, they're kind of on a roll. 4 straight. You're able to follow up a huge win over Kentucky, which was also cathartic. Like you break a streak there, you play well on the road, all these different things. Now you followed it up with another strong performance in a great atmosphere. The third thing, big picture thought, is now you're sitting at 5 wins. You have a couple games coming up that were among your most winnable coming into this year. And so you now have an opportunity to go get bowl eligible for the second year in a row. Shane Beamer would be 2 for 2 in his first 2 years. And I think that's an important step for this team as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, man, people want to see that linear improvement. And we normally have to remind them, we have to say, look, even if you are going to end up being a successful program, and even if a coach is going to build it up, a lot of times it's more like this, it's not actual linear improvement. But right now, the way this season has played out, we were talking about this on the 107.5 show. You're seeing, I don't want to say it's necessarily completely linear, like, a perfect 45-degree angle, but it has been, I would say, consistent improvement throughout the year. As you said, you got 2 just big boulders off your back by ending the Kentucky streak. Now you end the A&M streak, and we're not going to get into Missouri too much yet at all. We got all week for that. But I will say this, it is kind of interesting how it is set up in that you got the Kentucky streak ended, just to beat them the way they did, I think mattered a lot. Now you beat A&M for the first time. Now I think you have an opportunity to do something that, since I have been following this program, has always plagued South Carolina, and that's dealing with some success going into a game you're now supposed to win. So I think that's another opportunity for the Gamecocks coming up. But today we're talking about A&M and the big win. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way, Chris. I picked A&M to win the game, so was wrong on that one. Happy to be wrong. I love when we get to do this show and Gamecock fans are excited. They're always passionate, but I like it much more. It's much more fun when they're positive and have good things to talk about. Gamecocks, and kudos to the fan base, man, because y'all, Carolina made the plays, but y'all willed them to a win. And I got a question for you, Chris. So I am almost always at the home games. So I was not at this game, and I normally don't do the press box thing. I sit in the stands. I like the atmosphere. We had a death in the family, so rest in peace, my Aunt Bonnie. I was at the funeral on Saturday, watch the game from home. It looked incredible on TV, but you were sitting there and you've been sitting at a ton of games throughout your life. Where was this one as far as overall atmosphere, and where was this one when Xavier Legette pieced out, one shoe and all, taking it to the house, and try not to be a prisoner of the moment. Like there's been some, Georgia 2012, best one I've ever been in. But what did you think of the atmosphere comparatively? And you are currently muted, by the way.
I think your perspective always matters too. So actually for this game, I was way up high, which I'm not. I'm normally in a lot of different spots. This one I was way up high, I think 302. And we had some friends actually, Wes, that don't normally get to go to their games. It was their kids' first ever game. Pretty good way to intro them. So they got to see all the pregame stuff, the lights, all that jazz. Got to see that. They were absolutely blown away by the game, had a great time, which is really cool. So we needed a bunch of seats together. So we were way up high. That was just the easiest way to find them. So I think the perspective's a little bit different than if you're, say, in the student section, or even if you're down low, the sound can be different. But what it was an amazing view of the game and an amazing view of the entire stadium. So I'm really glad that we sat there. I don't know if I'll ever put a game on par with Georgia 2012, because I think we were like lower bowl for that game. And I don't think I've seen anything like that. It was just a complete collective, just mind blow. But this one was up there. I mean, it was a really, really good atmosphere. It was pretty packed out. It was loud. The reaction to that touchdown was incredible. It did probably kind of compare to painful memory here to that 2017 Kentucky game, like that we continue referencing, when Deebo Samuel scored early. They got an interception early in that game. They ultimately ended up losing, right? But I think it was similar to that early. And credit to the fans, because they did, even when South Carolina hit some adversity, they continued, to be loud. And it obviously did have an effect on A&M offensively, because they made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, man, you could tell, first of all, like, pat yourself on the back, guys and girls, because you could tell on TV, like, you obviously don't get the full feel of it on TV, but just the reactions from the SEC Network crew, you could tell they had not been in an environment quite like that this year. And obviously the kickoff return, it was already it felt like at a pretty high level. The kickoff return just ignited it completely. But I thought the crew did a great job, by the way. A lot of times you hear people talk about the announcing crew just to say negative things. But, Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, Cole Kubelik, they all did a fantastic job sort of bringing the game to the people out there. And I think just the State Fair, like the whole scene, like some of those shots where they pan down on Williams-Brice, the fairs in the background, the roads were still packed with people, I think, trying to get into the stadium. And then the lights are going crazy. Like, by the way, they can't even do pregame shots anymore. They're going to have to adjust, because they're trying to show Haynes King and talk about him, and the lights are like going out and going on and going out and going on and going on. So the atmosphere, it was a circus in the best way possible. And there are times you see teams come in and they sort of absorb it, and no matter how loud you get, they just are like robots almost. They just go about their business. Mm-hmm. This was not one of those times. Like, A&M was absolutely shook early on. I've never seen a snap get snapped and then batted straight to the opposing defensive line. 8 false starts. I mean, it was just, the fans absolutely played a tangible part in Carolina winning this game. Not just one of those, we fed off of it.
Right.
I think the fans were a factor in the winner and loser of this football game.
Yeah, I mean, you had the what was it? False start on their first play, right?
I think so. Yeah, it was bananas.
Yeah, false start on the first play. Little nod to Steve Spurrier. No, that'd be a timeout on the first play. Sorry. But yeah, false start on the first play. You had the weird. How about dude Tonka Hemingway? Find a way to get Tonka Hemingway the ball. We're talking about Marshawn Lloyd. Tonka Hemingway making the first man miss like every time, 100% of the time he gets it. Crazy play. And that's the play where it's a miscommunication. I listened to Jimbo Fisher try to, explain what happened after the game, but you're going up to the center to tell him something, and guy snaps the ball, and crazy bounce, and you get it there. But no doubt it played a huge role. Haynes King's a guy that he's not a senior, but he's played a good bit of football. A&M has some youth on that team. They're missing some guys, but they clearly just didn't handle the environment or handle the moment well. We've talked for so long, Wes, about South Carolina starting fast in games, and this is now 2 straight games, where they have been able to do that. And look, here's the other part. Yes, they started fast against Kentucky and A&M, but they also didn't put away either of those teams early. So they hit some adversity. Then they were able to come out and continue playing well and make the plays when they mattered, which I think was another mark of how much this team, has improved from last season.
Yeah, it's a mark of growth, I think, both for a team and a program in general, I think. And, oh, man, there's so many places we can take this, and I am the world's worst about staying on topic. I can talk about Tonka Hemingway. You brought him up for like 30 minutes. For one, lately he has found a way to get the football in his hands, it seems like. And also he's playing by far the best football of his career. And I didn't plan to go this way yet, but it's kind of naturally taken us there. The defensive line maybe is a little bit overshadowed by some of the other things that happened in this game. Constant pressure on A&M's quarterbacks. It reminded me of some of those defenses that South Carolina had, back in the glory days of the Spurrier era, where they were constantly, it wasn't, necessarily that you're always getting there. It's not that you're always going to get a bunch of sacks, but you can affect the quarterback. Haynes King a couple of times actually did a fantastic job of getting out of there. He had a great play on the touchdown throw in the first half, but these got, Gilbert Edmond thrown into the fire. I guess it's been about a month ago now. He's responded. He's actually one of my favorite players to watch play. Jordan Birch got a defensive MVP award from the staff for his game. Zach Pickens has, I think, is playing the best ball of his career. And then you bring on Tonka as well. Those guys, Chris, have just been fun to watch. And if they can get their opponents in passing situations, which they've done better and better at doing, they actually, I think we have enough evidence now. They can get after the quarterback and affect teams in that way.
And here's why we've had this conversation a few times this year. If you're going up and down the NCAA rankings, if this is how you analyze a team and say, oh, they didn't get a sack in this game, or they're this in sacks, you have to contextualize that. They didn't have a sack in this game, but did they affect the quarterback? Absolutely, constantly. And that was, in rushing throws sometimes, causing errant throws. There was a play where A-Chain was wide open in the flat and would have ran for a ways. They tipped the ball because they got after the quarterback. We saw it through rushing 4. We saw Clayton White send some timely blitzes from the nickel spot that got South Carolina going, and were able to pressure whether it was Haynes King or the backup quarterback, Connor Weigman. We saw both of those guys get pressured. So back-to-back weeks, and here's kind of another big picture point, Wes. Kentucky and Texas A&M, when they've been on these runs against South Carolina, particularly the last few years, they've been the aggressors on the lines of scrimmage. They've dominated South Carolina's offensive line defensively, and their offensive lines have dominated South Carolina's defensive line. Now back-to-back weeks where South Carolina has been able to flip that script. So with Boogie Huntley being out the last few weeks, that has given Tonka Hemingway an opportunity to rise up. Like you said, he's playing his best ball. The edge guys are playing too many snaps still, Wes, but it's really a testament to them and to the staff that they played basically the entire game, Birch and Edmond, and were still able to play at a high level. And they were also the catalyst, West, not only for being able to get after the passer, but just what they did up front in the run game. Huge key coming into this game was to limit A-Chain. If he gets 100 yards, okay, but how does he get to it? You had to avoid the 75-yard A-Chain touchdown run or the 60-yard run that instantly flips the field in one play, and they did that. He had a 30-yard run. He had a 15-yard touchdown run. Other than that, it's single digits. And so their ability to control him was huge. And here's the most telling stat, I think, maybe of the game. 5 missed tackles for South Carolina. That was it. Lowest tally of the entire season. That includes even Charlotte and SC State.
Oh, that is a great stat, man. It feels like, A&M did move the ball. Like, credit to them, they moved the ball, but it felt like, South Carolina was able to get off the field on some third downs and force, obviously, punts and field goals. And, I thought they got off blocks pretty well. They played the run for the most part soundly as far as getting into their gaps and stuff like that. And we are seeing this team, I think, improve in their ability to stop the run. And this is an A&M offense that has struggled coming in, but the running game was one thing they really could hold their hat on coming in. So keeping A-Chain just, he got his yardage, but didn't have a huge day. He went for over 150 last year on the ground alone. So, that was impressive to see. And I like the aggressiveness of Clayton White. Like he reminds me, y'all know the play on NCAA football back in the day where you get in nickel and you just send both linebackers right into the A gap and you play man coverage on the outside. It's not quite like that, but it feels sort of like when Carolina has momentum on defense, send pressure. When they need a big play, send pressure. When it's neither one of those two things, send pressure. It's just like, all right, we are going to send pressure all game long. And then, there will be a few times where, I'm going to show some pressure and then drop back and try and see if I catch them, maybe throw a ball into a window where they're not expecting a defender to be. But for the most part, the default is send extra guys. And to me, man, that is fun. Like, that is fun to watch. Like, as well as this defense has played at times, and as much as the last 2 years overall, you got to say they've played above their heads, I think. I don't think this is a defense that could just sit there, rush for, we're just going to play straight up, let the talent take over. Yes, it's a pretty overall simplified defense, but they keep coming at you and they keep sending people. You're going to give up some big plays every now and then when you do that. But if you make tackles, then you're probably going to be fine. And I think they thrive with this aggressiveness. There was a play, and I haven't rewatched it, so I can't place this play. I think it was pretty late in the game where it was a 3rd and long, and Carolina brought the house, and I think Cam came off the edge, and their quarterback did a great job of getting the ball out. I think it was on a wheel route, and actually gave themselves a chance to get the first down. And but it was 1-on-1. Their running back against Carolina's DB. He makes the catch. If he makes one guy miss, then they have a first down on the 3rd and long. But Carolina made the tackle, put themselves in a 4th down. And you're like, okay, you can send pressure like that if your guys can make open field tackles. And, Chris, I feel like tackling is one of those things. I'm so glad you brought that up because I didn't realize that stat. It's one of those things people bring it up if you miss a bunch, but then it's almost like a given, or it's kind of like an offensive line where we don't really acknowledge it when they tackle great. So 5 missed tackles against a team that has a guy like A-Chain is pretty impressive.
A-Chain, Evan Stewart, even, Haynes King is a mobile quarterback. And, early it looked like, South Carolina was playing a lot of man. Jimbo Fisher was trying to dial up, getting some mismatches that he thought he liked in the secondary. And sometimes they got him, but they were able to get guys on the ground. If A&M's catches were contested, there weren't a bunch of guys running wide open up and down the field. Everything looked difficult. And as a defense, that's what you want. You want to make the receivers make contested catches. If they make a great throw under pressure and a receiver makes a one-on-one play, you can live with that. You don't want guys running wide open down the field. You don't want guys making you miss in the open field. Even late, Wes, you think about when Connor Wigman came in, the backup quarterback, he made a couple shorter throws on a second and third down that it was one-on-one in the open field, little stick routes, I think. Carolina misses one of those tackles. You probably got a first down, and now everybody's sweating. Instead, they stopped them instantly. And so I thought it was an outstanding performance. I mean, look, Charlotte and SC State, you missed less tackles in this game than you did against those teams. You think about earlier in the year where they missed 21 tackles or something against Arkansas. It's a group that I think has gotten more and more comfortable, and certainly they're playing better. And, what they did in the open field reflected that on Saturday.
Yeah, so I'm trying to, compress this game into some concise thoughts, which is very difficult for me. But I did an interview earlier today with someone else. And they were asking Gamecock Central's thoughts on the game. They said, who are your players of the game from this contest? And I was like, that is a good way to sort of just knock out all the noise. And, Beamer gave out, the staff's players of the game yesterday on Sunday teleconference. But I tried to dial it down to one guy for each side of the ball. And for me, I came with Marshawn Lloyd on offense. Pretty easy one lately, I feel like. Darius Rush on defense. You texted me, man. I mean, the big play early on, but it's so much more than that. Darius, all over the field, it feels like, playing the best ball of his career. He's actually either the highest graded or second highest graded guy for the team this season on PFF on defense for the guys that actually play a lot. And, Darius could get a special teams reward as well. He makes plays on special teams, but you had to go Xavier Legette this week. Kickoff return for touchdown and going down there making tackles on the kickoff team as well. Is there anybody else you want to throw into that mix? Is there anybody you would put above those three in their respective facets of the game?
I don't think you could, man. Especially with Rush. I mean, that was such a game-changing play. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a one-on-one play. The technique, I loved on the broadcast, they showed kind of the overhead, like the drone view. His technique could be, displayed in a museum or something. I mean, it was amazing technique. Read the ball and then finished the play, not just a breakup, which should have been the worst outcome there. When you play that good a technique, should have been a breakup. He makes the play. Would have loved to see him get in the end zone there, but returns it, and South Carolina is able to get more points out of it. That's a huge, momentum swing in the game. So I thought that was huge. Legette, yeah, I mean, look, A-Chain, that was kind of a hold your breath moment. South Carolina had done a really good job of kicking the ball through the end zone because A-Chain not only is one of the best backs in the country, he is an electric returner. You think back to even, I think he had a long return earlier this year in a game. He can get it done there. And so you see the ball kick short and you're going, oh boy. And Xavier Legette comes in with the flying clothesline, gets that done. And Marshawn Lloyd, man, yeah, I think you got to go with him. Just again, making people miss, has a knack for finding his way into the end zone. Another great performance from him. I thought, there's some other guys that certainly deserve shout outs. Thought Cam Smith played very well again defensively. Javon Gwynn on offense. Austin Stogner, I thought, had a really good game as a blocker and some critical catches as well in the game. So overall, man, lots of guys that are probably deserving of shout outs, but I'd agree with you there.
Yeah, lots of people in the chat saying Kai Kroger. It's almost a given at this point, man. I mean, if there are better punters, there can't be many better punters than Kai Kroger as far as everything he does for his team. I would say the D-line, somebody said D-line as a whole. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know if I can put any of them above those three. I mean, those three sort of set the tone for the entire game, but on their respective side. But certainly, I mean, hey, Josh Vann coming through with a couple of really, really big catches when it was needed the most. That was one thing that I thought was a huge positive for this offense, Chris, was, yes, there were some very ugly moments. early on, a little bit of the grumbles over the offense, I was kind of like, well, the offense really hasn't had a chance to actually go play offense in a normal situation. The 3 and out where they had to kick the field goal, coming off of that interception, a little bit of a deflating moment, I think, but Carolina quickly pulled the momentum right back their way with the Tonka Hemingway turnover. But for the most part, it was like the second quarter almost before the offense actually got the ball at a normal spot, and it was like, all right, go run your offense, go run your scheme. This is not a situational opportunity. It's more just try to drive down the field. They had that. We talked about this off the air. They had a big play, partially wiped out by a personal foul at the end of a play where the pile's just kind of getting cleaned up a little bit, I guess. And that call is not going to be made 99% of the time. I think you see, a guy hits somebody like as the whistle is blowing. That's normally not a flag in an SEC football game. So there were some things that kept the offense from finding a rhythm early on, but that drive to put them up 2 scores late in the game, the early 17 points, I feel like that they had held up as long as they could hold.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolina only up by 3 at that point. I guess it would have been 24-21. They drive down. They score when they need it most. Lloyd makes some plays. Josh Vann had a big catch. They go back to the Jalen Brooks reverse. A little bit different setup on that one this time, but same concept. And basically, they got the drive they needed when they needed it. So, yeah, we can talk about the negatives of the offense, but at the same time, I think we got to give credit for that drive when it was really needed.
Yeah, I think that should really be more of the focus, man. It's just there's so much you can always pick apart, win or lose, which we will do. But, before we get into even more of that, the positives of the game are that South Carolina, again, they started fast, yes, but they did hit adversity. And a lot of that they caused for themselves when they didn't really need to. But credit to them for coming up. I mean, that was a huge drive. That was also, Wes, that was an 80-yard drive to go down there, take the lead. Then you make it more interesting because you get the extra point block, which Beamer wasn't happy about, rightfully so. So they definitely made it interesting down the stretch. But just when they had to come up with a play, they did it. And I think this was not the type of game that we've seen South Carolina win a lot over the past few years. And so I think that should be the main focus is how were they able to get that done? Why were they able to get that done? And I think a lot of it starts with kind of, just the belief and the culture that Shane Beamer's created. A lot of teams are going to talk about culture and things like that. And I think he's really not only taught the talk, but walk the walk. And I think you can look at some of the guys that had a huge impact in this game. It's a lot of the normal names, Marshawn Lloyd and all these other guys we're talking about. But, think about Xavier Legette, who had a very bad game, let's face it, against SC State. Well, they put him out there on kick return. He comes through. They put him on kick team coverage. He comes through. Josh Vann has not been heard from for much of the season. He comes through with some big plays. DeCarrion Joyner has not had the year I'm sure he would like to have or maybe that fans expected. He's out there throwing key blocks on the kickoff return. Jaheim Bell, fans are wondering why is he not getting more snaps. I know Jaheim would like more snaps, but he's engaged. He's throwing the Gatorade bath on Beamer after the game. I think these things count, that they've been able to keep not only their starters, but guys that have maybe smaller roles or maybe diminished roles. They've been able to keep those engaged and those guys engaged. And so that belief, that closeness and togetherness, I think that does, count for something. I don't know how I started talking about that, but I thought it was an important point.
No, it is, man. And I think, and part of the reason going in, I was hesitant to pick South Carolina was just I wanted to see if this program, not just this team, if this program could handle going out there. And Beamer he alluded to it, but the interview with Cole Kubelik right after the game, And he was saying it as a compliment to the crowd, how he said, I told the guys this crowd is not going to win this game for you. And then he was sort of saying, well, maybe I was wrong, just to compliment the crowd. What Beamer said, what he meant when he said that, basically was, guys, the fans can go lose their minds. You can't. You have to stay in the moment. You have to stay even keel, stay focused, use the energy of the crowd, but don't let it get you out of your normal thought process. And I think we saw too many times in big games. I don't think this is a generalization. I think we truly saw it. We saw big winnable games at home during the Muschamp era where South Carolina did not play to their potential, did not play well, and they could not either get off to fast starts or they couldn't capitalize on fast starts. That Kentucky 2017 game just keeps coming to mind, right? Well, you scored on the first offensive play, Deebo Samuel, of that game. The place is losing their mind. They are ready to believe. And then you actually, Chris, we were talking about this with somebody on Friday. You actually got a turnover as well.
Yeah.
And I think had to kick a field goal against Kentucky, and I think missed the field goal even. There were opportunities to really take a lead on Kentucky in that game. And some people are saying, why are you talking about a game from 5 years ago? But point being, just the ability to control your emotions with the circus going on around you is a skill, and it's something I feel like you have to learn to do. I was impressed with this team's way of channeling the energy in the stadium, playing well off the top. But then you didn't put A&M away. You couldn't put them away. You would have loved to, right? But it is a much different conversation to not put them away, but still find a way to win versus us sitting there saying what could have been, and finding a way to lose the game in the end. So I think this is you could look back if Carolina continues to trend upwards and say this is a turning point for this program. Probably the last two games, you could look back on these and say, man, those really just jump-started this program for what is to come.
Yeah, and it's created a lot of belief, and I totally agree with you that, there was no feeling. Maybe some of the fans were thinking it of the "here we go again." I mean, I'll freely admit I was wondering it. Sitting there watching the game when they didn't put A&M away, when they bring it to 17-14, late in the game when it's 24-21, you're thinking, are they going to miss this opportunity? And you start thinking about just how painful that would be because of how you started and the opportunity that's in front of you to do so much. All the big picture things that we talked about at the beginning of the show, really. But they didn't. And the fact that they were able to stick together and find a way to get it done. And here's the other thing, Wes, we're thinking about the start and how great this, you couldn't draw up much of a better start than that. They didn't play very well in a lot of spots in the second half. Right, to where they could have put this team away, not only early, but they could have put them away late too. You think about, look, A&M, 10 of their points were off of South Carolina turnovers in their own territory. It was a lot like how A&M stayed in the game against Alabama. They scored points off of Bama turnovers primarily. And so 2 of South Carolina's drives in the second half were one-play drives. It was the Spencer Rattler fumble on the pass attempt. Left tackle gets beat. Ball doesn't come out. Comes out when he gets hit. A&M takes that. I think they got a field goal off that one. There was another one, the Juju McDowell loss of 4, and he ends up fumbling. They review it. It's a fumble. A&M gets it. They score a touchdown on that one. 10 points. Spencer Rattler steps up, throws an absolute seed into the end zone. Jalen Brooks has a couple steps on his guy. Kind of an awkward catch because he's got his back. Probably should have caught it. Got banged up. Fortunately, he seems okay. There's another touchdown there that they don't end up getting. I think they had to punt on that drive. So this team didn't even play up, is what I'm trying to get to a point here. Team did not play even to its potential which is kind of, we keep talking about every week, has the offense played to its potential? No, I don't think so. But in a way, maybe for the fan base, it's kind of exciting that they could play better. And I still think the number one thing they have to do is eliminate the turnovers. They're still even in turnover margin. What could this offense do and what could this team be if they could eliminate the turnovers and be more positive in that category?
Well, I think from a Carolina perspective, the disappointing thing about those turnovers was you dare say, especially the last one when Rattler got hit, you dare say that's the only way A&M is really getting back in this game.
Yep.
Or you make it very, very hard on them if you're just making them go the length of the field. And, with Kai Kroger punting, like, I don't want to get into like a Lou Holtz. Like, I will never say, a punt is a great play. But the way the game was going, you kind of said, you don't even have to flip the field with Kai Kroger. You just have to get a couple of first downs, and then he booms it and pins it at the 10. So, I think you looked at this game and you said the only way they're getting back is if you help them out. And South Carolina did it twice, 2 times where it looked like they were about to maybe bury A&M. You'd let them right back in it. And so, there's a lot to point to if you're the staff where, and maybe it's a good thing, Chris, because we know they're going to get patted on the back all week long on campus. They're going to be told they're great, top 25. There's a Missouri team that has an incredible ability to both be close in every single game they play and to get beat in just about every game they play. So I don't know how they do that, but this is going to be a tight game again. So they're going to have to go make plays, not let up. There's plenty you can point to on tape in the film room to show the guys, hey, we're not there yet, basically.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much a blessing that there's that. We know,
a little bit.
Shane Beamer is, here's one thing that I feel like we know. People, I'll put myself in it. We always want to know something immediately. What's up, Kendall? And we don't always know it. You have to get some data. Like, there has to be some time that has to elapse. You have to have more than 2 games, right? That's why after Georgia State, I was trying to scream, we don't know yet what this team is. Remember how this team was just, they're not very good. They won't win any games. You got to figure it out. You got to go through the season. One thing that I think we know about Shane Beamer is he is good at getting his team motivated. He's good at taking things, whether it's like a slight or a perceived slight against him or the team, and motivating them. I think even though he downplays some of the things about like the Kentucky game going in or the A&M streak, I think he's good at channeling those things and using them. But I think he's also pretty strong at letting his team know and letting the fan base know that they're not satisfied with certain results. So that's why he can stand up there after an awesome win, an awesome locker room celebration, and be really ticked off about getting an extra point blocked, and pointing out the turnovers and just different things that happen within the game. So I think that is probably part of the maturation process of this team, of this program in general, because again, we have seen them stack more of those good moments this year than they did last season. And so next week is just another test of that. Can you keep your team motivated? I think so. But can you get the things that you need to corrected before the Missouri game?
Yeah, I feel like they've found their momentum a little bit earlier this year as well. So it's kind of a little bit before the season got away from them last year, and it felt almost on the brink at the midway point last year. Ironically, after the A&M loss at A&M, and they sort of regrouped, went into the bye week, and came out and got some of those big wins late in the year against Florida and Auburn. But they found themselves a little bit more. They found what they're good at. I think they've, dare say, found a little bit of an identity on offense. There's one comment, Chris, that, and I'm trying to find, somebody mentioned it. I think it was Justin mentioned it in here, but Justin is not alone. I've seen this discussed. I've even seen this in a headline. The Beamer comment about, I told Satterfield and I'm paraphrasing. I've told him to just get the ball to our best playmakers. Basically, if we're going down, we're going to go down with those guys getting the football. And I don't know, man. I don't really feel like that's some huge, like, it's been taken by some people as, how do you have to tell your offensive coordinator to give the ball to Marshawn Lloyd? Which I get. There were times in the first half where you're saying, why did one not get the ball? And, fresh off the interception, the Darius Rush interception, if it's me, one has got to touch the football. However, the numbers in the first half were skewed a little bit as far as Lloyd goes, because they were actually rotating backs a little bit more than they have been. And they didn't actually touch the football on offense drive one because of Leggett. And it was a short field the other two drives. So the numbers and the touches were skewed a little bit if you're just blindly looking at the numbers. I took that as Beamer it was just a reminder, like, hey, we have all these other things that are in, right? Like, we probably have all these other plays for this game that are designed to kind of spread the ball around, get the ball to different people. How many times have people said this year as a criticism, oh, why can't they spread the ball to Wells, Van, Brooks, Lloyd, Jaheim Bell, Stogner? Why can't you spread the ball around?
Carry-on Joyner.
Yeah, that's been a criticism
like everybody
all year long.
Right.
So I think it was just a reminder of, hey, let's force the ball to these guys late in the game. I don't know if you can run your entire offense around just forcing the ball to these guys for an entire season. There has to be some balance in moving the ball around. I think this was just hey, we're in this thing right now. It's a tight game. We're up by a little bit. Let's force it to these guys. I don't think that was some just like damning comment to say that, but it's been interpreted as just another negative against the offensive play caller. Like, to me, Chris, like, I'm not defending, like, there's evidence you can use against the offense, but to me, that's not it. That's not where I would go.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'll say this to, I guess, reassure the people that we're not just trying to shill for somebody. The drive you mentioned right after the rush interception, totally agree. Like, overthought it, in my opinion. Come out the next drive after the Tonka Hemingway fumble recovery and return, and you run it, I think, 4 or 5 straight times, and Lloyd's involved, and you end up scoring a touchdown, right? So I thought it was an overthinking it on that second drive. I think, didn't they pass the ball every time too? I don't think they ran the ball on that drive anyway, like, regardless, whoever's in there, Lloyd, Beal Smith, whoever. So that was an overthought to me. They corrected it that second drive. So I will agree with that. And I am a proponent of getting Marshawn Lloyd the ball more than not, right? Like, percentage wise, he's not going to get the ball 50% of the time in the offense, or 75, but when you can get him on the field and get him the ball and not get him completely beat up, I advocate for doing that. But I do think that has probably, that's a comment that's taken almost totally out of context. We don't know what the conversation was, right? It's almost like if Beamer had said, yeah, I told Clayton White at halftime, we need to make sure we pressure the quarterback. Everybody's like, well, the defensive coordinator didn't think to pressure the quarterback. Like, I think it's kind of along those lines. Like, the conversation could have been anything. I don't think it was Satterfield going, I don't really know what to call. What do you think we should do? And then, well, we should get the ball to Lloyd. If anything, Wes, actually, I think one thing that we see from the offense the past few weeks is they have pared things down. Like, they've pared the rotation down. They've pared the personnel groupings down. They have done a better job of getting their guys in some situations that they excel at. Even Jaheim Bell with more than snaps. What does he do well? Well, you get him in space. Marshawn Lloyd, they've obviously done a better job with him, getting him turned around the last few games and being productive. I think they've pared it down for Spencer Rattler, where we're seeing him make better decisions, even if that's a decision not to throw it in the passing game. Juice Wells, they found some things for him. Jalen Brooks, reverses, deep balls. Now, did Lloyd need to touch the ball more in the first half? Yes, I agree. But I do think that comment has probably been taken out of context. Maybe Beamer will address it. Satterfield, I have a feeling, will probably be asked about it tomorrow, Wes, and probably kind of talk about that. And look, one thing I think you credit him for, at least in his public comments, is he'll just straight up say, yeah, I overthought that one. We should have gotten the ball to number one. I think you can have both those things. I think it can be, yes, Lloyd should have gotten the ball more, but I think it can also be, it's not like it was some novel idea to get the ball to Marshawn Lloyd just because Beamer said it at halftime. That conversation could have gone in any number of ways that none of us heard.
Yeah, and Chris, I hope I'm not muted. I'm not. I was trying to go through some stats while you were talking, and see just how. And yeah, agree. As you said, and as Justin says here, Sat owns it. Top to bottom, ever since he's been here, he said, "Hey, I overthought that," or he'll say like we were pressing, stuff like that. You've heard him say that before. Respect that completely. I think they did. We don't have to go all into it, but the short field 5-yard line, you got to get the ball to one. One of those plays, but. For the most part, man, and somebody responded to my comment about the numbers being skewed in the first half, and I was trying to do a little bit of research on that, but you had drives where you were on a short field. The final drive of the first quarter, Chris, was the fumble by Juju on the first play of the drive. So you have short fields, then you have a one-play drive, then you go into the second quarter, and A&M kicks the field goal, right? I'm looking at the play-by-play right now. It's 17-6. South Carolina gets the ball back. They put Christian Beal-Smith in. And so Christian Beal-Smith has this drive as the running back. Like, he's the guy for this drive. Your next drive by A&M goes from 10 minutes left in the second quarter until 2 minutes left in the second quarter. This was their just big. They took over on the 6, marched it all the way down, and scored their best drive of the game easily. So then South Carolina's taking over in a 2-minute situation where they're not going to be getting the football. They're not going to be handing the ball off. So absolutely, in a vacuum, one should never go a half with 3 carries. And in that scenario, that first drive at the 5-yard line, I know everybody in the stadium knows Lloyd is getting the ball, so that's probably why they didn't give it to him. But I'm giving it to him anyway. Well,
here's one thing, not to cut you off, but I want to make sure I get this thing, because I want to get your thoughts on it within your train of thought. It just reoccurred to me. So A&M had given up 3 rushing touchdowns all year. All year. They played Bama. They played Arkansas. They played, App State. They played some good teams. Giving up 3 rushing touchdowns all year. And they were the number 1 red zone defense in the conference and number 2 in the country overall. Now, and I did not go through and log, what's the defensive look they're giving or whatever in all those games, but it could have been, and again, this may be an overthinking it. It could have been that said, we punched it in on drive 1, but drive 2, this is what we expect them to do. And so maybe you feel like from a matchup standpoint, you have something better in the passing game, on that drive. Maybe. Just a thought.
No, I think that's an excellent point, man. It's really easy. It is really, really easy to sit here and kind completely just, it didn't work. It's silly. Why didn't you give the ball to one? Those are great points. We're not thinking about that watching the game, or most people aren't thinking about it. They're saying hand the ball to one. Well, yeah, they we talked about that in the lead up. They've given up yardage on the ground, but like you said, 3 rushing touchdowns all year long. They've been fantastic in the red zone. Maybe Carolina worked all week long on red zone, goal line beaters, basically. And maybe they had the exact looks they wanted and it just didn't hit. So when you do that, yeah, it makes you look bad if it doesn't work. But who knows, man? It may actually have been the right call. And I'm here's the thing. I'm going through the play. The games are way different when you just look at them on paper as well. So first quarter, first drive never happens offensively because there's a kickoff return. Second drive is the drive we're all talking about, where South Carolina didn't score or had to kick the field goal. Next drive, they do run the football. That was the short field off of Tonka. Lloyd and CBS carry the load on that drive. They score. Then let's see. Really, the only drive that there can be an argument about why didn't Lloyd touch the ball is the next drive, which is the one in between when they scored the touchdown with them touching the ball, and the one I just talked about where Juju got hit. So there's really only one in this quarter. There's one drive that is in between what we talked about a second ago, the Juju fumble, then 10-minute A&M drive, then the 2-minute drill at the end, right? And in that one drive that you can even look at, South Carolina, incomplete pass on first down, hands the ball to Lloyd for 3 yards on second down. Then they have the big throw down the middle to Stogner that gets pretty much wiped out. Then, listen to this, the drop pass on the swing pass to Marshawn Lloyd. And then there was another run on the drive that was CBS. So, yeah, it looks bad when you just look at that halftime stat. But when I really go through it, like drive by drive, I don't know, other than taking the ball at the 5. Other than that, when you break it down like that, I don't know if I find a near as much fault as you would think on just off top. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, man, just to take it more general, I mean, this offense has, I will say it until I'm blue in the face, I'm very convicted of the fact this offense is a good bit better and more dangerous and more consistent even than it was at the beginning of the year. Go back and watch, if you can stomach it, go back and watch the Georgia State game. It wasn't pretty. And then go back and watch even Saturday night, which wasn't always pretty. It's better. It's definitely better. Whether it's finding things that work more, I think Spencer Rattler is not pressing as much. And some people have rightfully pointed out in the comments that he's even seemed hesitant to make some throws at times, or has thrown it away when he shouldn't have. You'd almost rather have that than what we saw at the beginning of the year, which is him pressing it, sometimes making some bad throws. You think about the fact that, I mean, they had that Lloyd drop. Jaheim Bell had a drop on what would have been a first down. The other side of it is Jaheim Bell had a couple broken tackles en route to a first down. You had the Brooks play that he couldn't haul in the end zone that would have been for sure a touchdown. There were some plays that if South Carolina makes them, we're probably not talking about Lloyd's carries, quite as much. It is one thing, and it's an important factor in the game and going forward. But I think if they can kind of, continue to get better, if they can have maybe their best game at some point this season, maybe we're not deep diving quite as much into some of these things.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I probably went a little too deep on that one, but I did. We were kind of learning on the fly there. I hadn't really broke it down like that, but it was just a weird first half, y'all. Like this was not just you rolled out there on offense and went 3 and out and punted the ball, and then they moved the ball a little bit and punted it back to you, and you just that was one of the more interesting, weirder games we've ever seen as far as South Carolina goes. We're almost out of time. Chris, I got to ask you, this came up on Facebook. It was a controversy that I didn't realize was a controversy because neither decision would have been bad. And I probably would have done the same exact thing South Carolina did. The game is 30-21. Late in the football game, South Carolina has the ball. It is 4th and 1. I thought Lloyd got the first down when he ran out of bounds anyway, but he didn't, according to the spot. So, weirdly, before that, Jimbo Fisher did not call his timeout on first down, seemingly that he was giving up. I don't know. They gotta stop a -4 yard run on second down. Jimbo decides to burn his timeout. He had all three according to the graphic. So then Lloyd busts it to the outside, appears to get the first down, but steps out of bounds. Stops the clock. A&M doesn't have to burn a timeout. They go for it on fourth down. A field goal puts you up 12, which is still a 2-score game, though it is now a 2-touchdown game instead of a touchdown and field goal game. A first down on the 4th and 1 literally lights out, ends the game, game over. You go from 99% winning to 100% winning. I will always go with give me a yard to win the game. The analytics actually say both decisions accomplish the same thing. That is like 99%, and like basically neither decision adds or subtracts from your decision or from your chances statistically percentage-wise to win the game. Did you like the decision to run it? Would you have kicked it? Or do you think it's so much of a toss-up that it shouldn't even be a conversation? The only reason I'm bringing it up is there are people in our Facebook page comments that are adamant that this was the worst decision they have ever seen, which I don't even fathom that. Like, it's such a toss-up. You can't feel that strongly about either side.
Remind us how much time was left in the game too.
Okay, I'm going to give you that. Give me 1 second.
It's 30-21.
It is 30. It is a 9-point game.
Yep. Which is, of course, 2 scores.
So it's already at 2 scores. It is 4th and 1.
Yeah.
And A&M took over with 1:06 in the game. So there was just over 1:06 when that play started. A&M had 2 timeouts.
And then they eventually drive down and get.
They eventually drive down because you went into a little bit of a prevent.
You had to prevent, yep.
They drive down. They run out of time, so they kick the field goal.
And then
you're already talking about. Sorry, I keep cutting you off, Chris. You're already talking about the chances of them driving down, getting in position, making the field goal, getting the onside kick, hitting a helmet. Like your chances of winning statistically are literally 99%, no matter what you do there.
Yeah.
So
here's what I would say. I wouldn't have, if Beamer would have kicked the field goal, I wouldn't have screamed about it and said that was a terrible decision. I think you could see either way. I would have gone for it like they did. First of all, the thing I keep thinking about is the fact that it's still hard to believe Marshawn Lloyd did not get that first down, because it's not like he should have gotten it
on the third down.
On third down. But you got to remember, they did have a point after blocked, and it was almost run back for what would have been 2 points. Okay. So when you think about that, you're sitting there when you're Beamer and you're ticked off about that happening. And you're like, well, God, what if it happens again? Because they're definitely going to sell out to try to block the kick. You make the kick. It's still just, like you said, a 2-score game. So they're still having to drive the field twice. There is the difference there that they would need 2 touchdowns instead of a touchdown and a field goal, right? Which is the scenario we ended up seeing. But if you bank, I don't know, just the odds, I try to go for it on that 4th and 1 and end the game and forget about all that other stuff. As it were, if you don't get it, they still have to drive the field twice and onside kick it with a minute left when they haven't done a lot on offense all game and 2 timeouts. I'm good. I'm certainly good with kicking it, and that's what I would have done. So
You would have kicked it?
No. I would not have kicked it. I'm sorry. I would have gone for it is what I was trying to say. I would have gone for the 4th down.
Yeah. And the thing that people are ignoring is that, yes, it is easier to kick a field goal than it sometimes is to get 1 yard. But if you hit the field goal, which you probably would, but even if you do, that does not ice the game.
Yep.
If you get the 1 yard, the game is iced. It is over.
And then you probably, the other thing to think of, Wes, is they're actually going to be in better field position when they get the ball back. You also
got to kick it to A-chain.
You got to kick it to A-chain. If you don't kick it out of the end zone. Now, earlier they kicked it to A-chain, not it to the back of the end zone, and he called it, and now you're going, oh, crap. Luckily, Xavier Legette, WWE style clothesline. But, dude, I'd rather give the ball to A&M's offense at like at their own 10-yard line than here's a kick to Devin A-chain and he has wide open space. Honestly.
Yeah.
So
agreed. If it was an 8-point game, I kick it because I'll take the risk just because I want to go up 2 scores. 9-point game, I go for it every single time. And most of the time, more times than not, you're going to get it, you're going to down it, and nobody's even going to have the conversation.
Yeah.
It just so happens they had a huge mountain to climb, and they climbed part of it, but still the percentages were against them, them being A&M. And Brandon says risky call. I don't even think it was risky. It's not a risky. The percentages say 99% if with either decision that you win the game. I'll put the ball in my guys' hands and say, go end this thing on offense. And if not, they got to go down the field twice and get an onside kick in between it. So I didn't understand the talk about, like, somebody's response was a field goal makes it a 2-score game. And I'm like, no, it was already a 2-score game. Doesn't make sense. And South Carolina weirdly has had bad snaps on field goals and PATs this year as well. They have not been as consistent in that as they were last year. So that's another part. Bad things can happen. I think it was the right call. Either way, they won, figured it out. Huge win. We didn't have time to get into everything. Hopefully we got into a lot of the things we wanted to talk about. I want to talk some recruiting next show because it was a big day for them in recruiting, big night for them in recruiting. And, hey, they put themselves in position, man. With every win, new opportunities arise. Huge opportunity against another beatable opponent, South Carolina, a 5-point favorite against Missouri. That about what you thought it would be, Chris?
Yeah, that makes sense. Given that, I mean, you said it earlier, all of Missouri's games are close. Doesn't matter if they're playing Georgia or Vanderbilt. Probably a 1-score game, right? So they may have even confused Vegas a little bit on that one.
Yeah, they've confused
Weird
me.
team.
Poor Dave Neal, man. They always give him those games, don't they? Every time.
Vandy, Missouri, I didn't even know. He did?
Oh, yeah.
Dave, what a trooper.
My buddy Chris Payne texted in the group text. He's like, he saw that, Vandy, Missouri are playing. He's like, guarantee Dave Neal has this game. I turned it on before the Carolina game. Yeah. Sure enough, there's Dave. Dave Neal is great.
He's great.
He is, I mean, Jefferson Pilot Sports, like, he is my childhood of watching football.
Oh, absolutely.
And they give my man Missouri and Vandy.
He's a team player.
I'm going to start a petition of get Dave Neal primetime games.
Okay. I like it.
We're going to make that push. We're out of time, y'all. He's Chris. I'm Wes. Appreciate everybody tuning in. It's been fun. It's been great. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see y'all later.